Hi, thanks for joining me today. And in this presentation, we're going to be conducting an introduction to the world's biomes, which is a key aspect of our work in this term. Before you get started, you might find it really useful to consult your Oxford Big Ideas Humanities. That's your red textbook. So if you need to, pause this video, get permission to leave the classroom and go and get your textbook. So let's get started. The world's biomes. In order to study and understand the different environments on Earth, geographers divide the planet up into a number of distinct areas called biomes. Biomes share similar features such as its weather, climate, soil and landforms and are classified according to the types of plants and animals that live there. Each biome has particular features that make it unique, so make it different from other biomes. For example, one biome might be hot and rainy most of the time, while another biome might be cold and dry most of the time. These different weather and temperature conditions mean that the plants and animals that live in these different biomes have adapted in different ways over time and interact with each other in unique ways. Now let's look at the types of biomes. Not all geographers and scientists classify biomes in the same way. Some use a simple classification system that includes just two biomes. They are the terrestrial biomes, so that's what we find on land, or it could be an aquatic biome, that's those found in water. Others use a more precise classification system that divides these two main biomes up into as many as 15 separate subcategories. The most common types of terrestrial and aquatic biomes are listed in Source 1 and their locations around the world are shown in Source 4 on the next slide. So you'll see on this slide that we have two different sources. The first one, Source 1, shows us the different types of biomes and has actually classified it from the cold and dry biome through to warm and wet biomes. And it's also identified the three types of aquatic biomes, which are freshwater, marine and coral. Then on the other side, on the right, you'll see that there's some little thumbnail pictures of what those particular biomes actually look like in real life. So take a couple of minutes to have a look at that. You might want to pause this, so go ahead and take a good look, or alternatively you can have a look in your textbook. This is on page 47 actually. Okay, now it's time to do some work. You have two questions to answer. It should only take you about 8 minutes to do this. So I'd like you to pause the video and tackle these two questions. The first one is, what is a biome? And then the second is, what is the difference between a terrestrial biome and an aquatic biome? Now you can write this in your workbook or you can take notes on your laptop, but make sure that you write complete notes because this could come up as assessment in your future. Now let's take a look at the features of different biomes. In certain biomes, such as in tropical forests, there is an abundance of plant and animal life. This is because the weather conditions favour a huge variety of species. For example, a recent study of a Colombian rainforest, found 596 bird species, 150 different species of amphibians, and more than 200 species of mammals. Scientists estimate that there are more than 100,000 insect species per hectare in this rainforest and more tree species in a single hectare of this rainforest than there are in the whole of North America. This explosion of life is due to the year-round high temperatures and rainfall in the region. At the other end of the scale are the tundra and the polar lands, and these are the coldest biomes. The tundra biome circles the North Pole and because of its location, it has very low temperatures and short growing seasons. As a result, there is very little plant diversity. In fact, the word tundra means treeless plain. The polar lands biome is even colder than the tundra and it includes the continent of Antarctica. Even though Antarctica is twice the size of Australia, it contains virtually no native species of plants or animals. Only 2 flowering species of plants exist on the continent, and the largest native land animal is a 1 centimetre long wingless midge. That's kind of fly. There are no native mammals, amphibians or trees in Antarctica. It is simply too cold, too dry, and too windy for plants and animals to flourish. So let's take a minute to have a look at this. What we have on your left is the legend of this map. So this legend might look a little bit more intense than other legends you've worked with before, but it's simply got the color coding and then it's actually got a picture of the type of terrestrial biome, so what it looks like. Then on your right, dominating most of the screen, is a map of the world showing all the different biomes and where you'll find them. So hit pause if you want to and take a careful look. Okay, more time for you to do some work. First of all, question 3. What does the word tundra mean? And where is the tundra biome located? So take a careful look at the map. Then question 4 asks you to identify where the world's tropical forests are located and why do you think they're located in these places. Have a really careful look at the geography of these places and look at some of the other markings of the map, and that'll give you some help. You've got 8 minutes to complete these 2 questions and write complete notes to make sure that you've got this all together for future assessments. Let's take a look at Australia's biomes. Now, Australia is one of the world's largest countries in terms of landmass. The northern part of Australia lies in the tropics, while the southern part stretches towards Antarctica. The sheer size of the landmass, which spreads across much of the Earth's southern latitudes, means there is a wide variety of biomes in Australia. Many of Australia's original biomes have changed by human activities. More than half of Australia's total land area is now used for food production, particularly sheep and cattle farming, covering 430 million hectares of land. This has resulted in significant changes to vegetation, land and water across much of the country. And source 1, on your left, shows Australia's original biomes before they were changed by human activities. Australia is the second driest continent in the world, after Antarctica. The combined area of the 10 biggest Australian deserts make up about 18% of the total land area in our wide brown land, which is a common term to describe Australia, particularly internationally. We can also describe Australia as arid or semi-arid because 70% of the continent receives less than 500 millimetres of rainfall each year. This low rainfall has resulted in large desert areas across much of Australia. Many people think of deserts as being entirely composed of large sand dunes with the occasional date palm or cactus as the only sign of life. Now, this image may come from the movies or maybe pictures that they've seen of deserts from around the world. However, while the Sahara Desert in Africa does have date palms and sand dunes and most North American deserts have cactuses, there are variations within the desert biome. Some desert areas in Australia have large areas of red dunes, for example, but some are covered in vast areas of stones, and that's called a gibber plain, and that's source number 3, so the one down the bottom. In most of Australia's desert areas, grasses and low shrubs dominate the landscape, and you'll see that in source 3 as well. In the tropical deserts north of the Tropic of Capricorn, spinifex and tough Mitchell grass cover much of the ground. South of the tropics, woodland deserts are much more common, with tough acacia trees such as the mulga and the witchetty bush in evidence. Time for you to do some more work. Firstly, why is there a wide variety of biomes in Australia? And then think a little carefully about where you live. What is the dominant natural biome where you live? Describe some of the ways in which this has been altered by human activities. This should take you about 8 minutes. You can write this in your workbook, take notes on paper, or you can use your laptop. But make sure you make good notes because it will help you in future assessment. Okay, here we have more work. What I'd like you to do here, again in 8 minutes, is I want you to compare Australia's biomes in source 1 with the world's biomes in source 4, which was on page 47 but is over here on your left, and I'd like you to answer the following questions. Which biomes do not exist in Australia? And then I'd like you to explain why these biomes aren't in Australia. And then I'd like you to think about how has latitude influenced the distribution of biomes in Australia, and write an answer in response to that. Now, one thing I'd like you to be really clear on here is that both of these maps use different legends, okay? So the one with the pictures only applies to the world map. It does not apply to the map of Australia on the right, okay? Make sure you check that legend so that you use the correct information. Okay, so what you need to do here, and it should take you only 8 minutes, is I want you to compare Australia's biomes with the world's biomes. So you need to look at two different maps. You need to identify which biomes do not exist in Australia, and you need to give a reason for each of these biomes being missing in Australia. Then question 4 is, how has latitude influenced the distribution of biomes in Australia? So if you need to, quickly Google what latitude is, but then consider how it's affected the distribution of biomes in Australia. So this should only take you 8 minutes. And one thing I want you to be aware of is that the legends on these two maps are different. The world map on your left has the little picture legend, which is really useful. But for the map on your right, you need to look at the other legend that is on the page. That's the one in the Great Australian Bight, because the colours are different and we don't want to see you get messed up. Okay, this is the last task that you need to do this lesson. And it's question number 6 on page 57 if you're following along in the textbook. You need to construct a collage or create a PowerPoint display of Australia's major biomes. Include at least one image of each biome. So my advice is that you create a PowerPoint presentation. Make sure you include the URL of the images that you use. Make sure that for every image that you use, you have a caption explaining what the image is and the biome that it is, and one slide per biome is fine. This isn't a huge project, but again, it is creating notes that you're going to be using for future assessment, so make sure you do a good job. Okay, we've come to the end. Full credit must go to the creators and publishers of this textbook, Oxford Big Ideas Humanities for the Victorian Curriculum, published by Oxford and created by some fantastic curriculum writers and teachers. And so everything came out of that. The only thing that I really did here was present it and put it into this shortened form. Thanks very much for watching and good luck with all of your work. Take care.